Hello everyone and welcome back to the ITAM Accelerate Process of the Month videos. We are now up to the inventory importation process. So we're steaming along the foundation kit here. We're coming towards the end. The end is in sight for all that sort of good foundation type stuff we should be giving due consideration to when it comes to modelling quality SAM. So what to say, Kylie, about the inventory importation process? I'm looking at the cheat sheet down here that the good folks at home can't see, and it looks remarkably automated.
It does, doesn't it? And that's fundamentally because this is about the tool. This is about your discovery tools, capturing information, uploading, normalizing it. So you might have information coming from multiple data tools. You have to normalize it so that you don't end up with duplicate installations of things. And then you need to upload it into your SAM suite so that your SAM suite can align the inventory, what you're actually using, against the licenses you've imported through your entitlement importation process to produce what's in your license pool.
Yeah, and I think it's important to highlight there's several elements or criteria of data. So there will be the evidence of installation, there will be evidence of use, and there will also be evidence of consumption as well. Increasingly now you're finding a lot of software, the license compliance calculation relies on types of user, power of user, frequency of use, length of runway, millions of oils a barrel produced in a day, t-shirt size, and any other sort of squirrely metric that a software vendor can think of to throw into the mix just to keep you on your toes. So if you can have that automated and systematic with regards to importation into a SAM suite, you are yards ahead or miles ahead potentially of a lot of organisations. A lot typically are still using emails and sort of exported CSVs from those management suites that report on metric and consumption of use. So if you can get automated and get slick with that, kudos to you.
Yeah. So I think, like we said, it needs to be automated, but at the same time, if there's one thing about automated processes, that is that if your process is bad and you automate it, all you're doing is creating a whole heap of more problems for yourself. So don't automate this until you're confident that all of the data that is being brought into your tool is accurate and it's normalized. And I think that normalization process is really, really key. It's very, very difficult to do because you'll have multiple different tools across your organization. And you can take a number of different approaches. One, you can sort of just say, right, well, we've just got one discovery tool and we're only going to consume that data. But what that means is that you've just got the data from that discovery tool. What you don't have is data from a completely different discovery tool that might tell you that there's a firewall somewhere in your organization and you're missing a couple of thousand desktops or laptops or a couple of thousand servers because they're hidden behind a firewall that your chosen discovery tool hasn't had access through, whereas maybe another discovery tool or another data source full stop may actually have access. So there's this balance to be struck between using the data of lots of different tools so that you've got the biggest breadth of data and you're confident that you're capturing everything, but then the normalization challenge to say, okay, so this machine name in this tool aligns with this machine in this tool, and then there might be another slightly different machine name or host name that's coming back because you've got a third tool. So that process is saying, yes, all of these three things match up and they're actually one installation. That's normalization. So working through that process of making sure that your tools are correct and that you have them normalized properly is really, really important. And this is where we rely very heavily on the IT service management process, configuration management. And all too often we just assume that we're going to chuck a load of data into a database and we're going to call it a configuration management database, and then Bob's your uncle. We've got lots of data that we can use. But actually there's a huge amount of work that has to go on within your CMDB to make sure that you've got the right data feeds coming in, that's all correctly normalized, and that then you can actually consume that data. So software asset management actually becomes the consumer of configuration management data. So we have to ask them for a service that they can provide us. But what often happens, particularly in smaller organisations where you don't have a configuration management function, because software asset management ends up with lots and lots and lots of information about the organisation, and we are probably the function that consumes most discovered data, because that's what we do. Everything we do relies on it. We often end up effectively being the golden source of discovered data for the rest of the organisation as well. So a lot of software asset managers effectively end up providing configuration management data services to everybody else in the organisation. So it gets quite complicated. But really understanding the relationship between the discovered data that your inventory that you need for SAM and your configuration management system is really important. Understanding how that works within your organisation.
Just to Kylie's point too about areas, areas of the IT estate that appear not to sort of get inventory data. Again, I had a situation on a consultancy where, without telling anybody or without telling the SAM or ITAM team, the network engineers had closed down various IP ports, and in doing so, that had stopped agents from working. So while you might think that your IT estate is just one big level playing field, don't forget the subnet masks. The sub-distribution goes on in networking. That needs to be overcome. Do you have remote servers that act as sort of beacons and halfway points that gather that data for that area of the IT estate and then report it back via an exception IP address to the SAM suite? That can be a workaround. But it goes back to that thing we mentioned in the previous process about having a working relationship with procurement. You need to also have a working relationship with the system owners who look after the golden source of that third level metric data, because it's all very well thinking, oh well, I'll just hook up an API and we'll gather that data seamlessly. You need system permission. The system needs to say it's okay to do that, but then the system owner needs to say, yes, you can put that API in my system. And again, where I see SAM fall down a lot is back to that entitlement side of life, where the CFO says, no way, you're not going anywhere near our procure to pay system. We'll have to sort of have a technical workaround or a CSV export, work that way instead. They get very, very protective of systems. So again, politics, there isn't a politic management process in ISO,
There should be.
but there absolutely needs to be.
I think it's probably officially the stakeholder management.
Oh well, yeah. I guess you could shove it in there somehow.
Yeah, but it is
I guess,
politics.
yeah. But politics is a killer, an absolute killer.
So this process feeds out to similar processes as the entitlement importation process, because I think I said in that process that these two processes are twins, and once you've got them in your tool, then you can automate many of the compliance calculations as part of the license pool management process. And of course, also inventory importation is critical for your license compliance audit and validation process as well, which is when you formally assess the accuracy of your license pool management process, or of course it's because a vendor's coming in and says we want to audit you. So the other process that this feeds out to is one we call the orphan data process, and that's because alignment between what you're capturing is in your inventory and what you're capturing regarding what you own, plus your contracts, they all need to be aligned correctly in your tool in order for your tool to be able to do accurate calculations. So the orphan data process is a really important process for making sure that all the data aligns correctly within your tool. And I know you've done quite a few rounds of trying to resolve lots of orphan data, haven't you, Rory?
Oh, it's what's paid for my car, basically, if you think about it. Because
that's a very nice car.
It's that thing of balancing, as Kylie said, your entitlement data to your inventory data, but also then the recognition data in the SAM suite, and that is as much an art as it is a science. And you're at the behest then of the SAM suite providers to say that they've got an all singing, all dancing solution that picks up every known software title known to man. Please be aware the SAM suite providers are always playing catch up. So you could be ahead of the procurement curve of stuff they might have in their to-do list to get into their recognition database. Just bear with them. Again, the top tip is if you do put a local record in, and then later, your SAMSUIT provider puts in an official record, run with the official record at that point, because otherwise you're going to cause all kinds of compliance calculation problems. So top tip there.
And the last process this one feeds out to, of course, is the asset data verification process, which is where we make sure that everything in our tool is accurate, and we run exception reports and regularly check to try and capture aspects of data that aren't accurate and try and fix them up.
So particularly with that recognition aspect of installation data, because there are, again, we're back to that expression by Disraeli, there are lies, damn lies, and then there are statistics. A SAMSUIT tool may say that is an installation of Microsoft SQL, but it could be just the, what was the thing that Alexander Golev was banging on about on LinkedIn the other day? It was the reporting suite within
I don't know.
SQL. There's an element which a lot of people will just assume to install because they feel it's free.
Right.
And it's not free.
Right.
And potentially it could count as an instance of SQL if you're not careful. But you have to account for it from a licensing perspective.
Yeah.
So it's those little gotchas that you really need to work out as well and make sure. And if you're doing some sort of filtering of which SAMSUIT to watch out for, capturing management packs and data options, middleware, all of those kind of exceptions and outliers. Everybody can scan laptops. Everybody can scan PCs. But what are people doing in the cloud? What are they doing in the data center? And that's where the money is. So you need to be able to recognize that software and do it systematically.
So I think that's it, really.
We've blown our 10-minute
we have actually
target on this one, haven't we? But it is. I think it's worth it for the importance that we've got to assign to this one. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Okay. Well, we'll speak to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.